Rarita Zbranca is cultural expert with 25 years of experience in arts management, curating, research and advocacy. She contributes to the Culture for Health report and coordinates the development of cultural strategy of the city of Cluj. Our topic is how the culture can contribute and be somehow helpful in the theme of well-being and mental health. My first question is, why do you think the topic of cultural involvement in fostering mental resilience is so important at the moment?
Well, I think there's different ways we can look at this topic. First of all, this is not new. I think the fact that art has a positive impact on health and well-being has been known for people working in the arts, even intuitively, I guess, forever. And even, let's say, more institutionally is not a new thing. In the Greek democracy, in the Athenian democracy, among the various democracy institutions, there was also one that we are not speaking so much of when we speak of these democracy instruments, and that one was the theater, and that was a very important place, or let's call it instrument through which the younger generations, and not only them, would learn about life, about how to deal with emotions, with relationships, how to prepare to go to war. So we are living in something that has been called as volatile, uncertain times. Our reality 4 years ago compared to the one 2 years ago and to the one that we are facing today has been going through some so profound disruptions and transformations that on one hand, I think we as individuals have not faced such an accelerated rhythm of transformation in our lives. This is something that we are going to face further on because the rhythm of transformations that come naturally with technology and scientific development, but also through having interconnected societies, which means that a disruption in one corner of the world would bring will have effects actually all across the globe, and we see how the global market falls if some small event is happening in in a corner of the world. So being so interconnected, these effects are transforming our lives in a much faster rhythm. So why culture? I think on one hand is that, again, through the transformation that our society has been going through, we have lost some of the tools that the traditional peoples were dealing with, like rituals, for instance. Nowadays, we don't have the same type of let's say socially validated mechanisms to deal with loss, grief, um, different moments of challenge in our lives. And I think culture is the closest system that is accessible, let's say it's non-religious, that is accessible to everyone, at least in theory is accessible to everyone, and then we can have a deeper conversation about access to arts. But it has embedded in its way of working this creation and regeneration of value systems of people's personal view on the world and coping with the world. And this is really instrumental on how we are able to deal with all these challenges. In 2019, the World Health Organization published a key report in this area of arts and health about the existing evidence on how arts and cultural participation impact health and well-being. And they presented there, let's say, a logical model on how and why arts do seem to be effective. And this is because artistic activities are multimodal activities. And what does it mean? It means that they engage different types of mechanisms simultaneously. Let's say, and this can be, you are socially engaged, while at the same time you may be using your body, you may be using your sense perceptions, you are using your cognition, you get new information, you process information, you are stimulating your imagination, you're putting at play your imagination. Most of the time, some of these mechanisms work at the same time. They produce effects at psychological, physiological, behavioral, and social levels. So, well, definitely there are more ways in which art can help support mental health. And I think this is where we have to tackle a bit the complexity of this field. So when we speak about this domain of arts and health and well-being, we can call it like an emerging field of practice, which is at the intersection of several fields, and that is art, but that is also health. We can call it psychology, social integration. So there are various fields, and we can also consider when we think about the design of public spaces and how they influence our mental health, then we also speak the intersection with urban planning. So this is an area that is interconnected with other disciplines. And then the response to your question is also in direct relation with these different disciplines. So as I was just mentioning, let's say we can speak about these positive effects at several levels. There's the individual level, there is the community, the social level, and in that we can also have the organizational level, and then there is the macro level, the level of the wider community of the society. And at the macro level, we can look at a city, let's say, and see how, for instance, the design of public spaces or the design of specific environments in which people are spending most of their times, like workplaces or school environments, they are influenced by the presence of art.
Is there data which justify the use of culture in empowering mental resilience?
In the Culture for Health project, we also did a mapping of existing projects and practices in this field in Europe and beyond. And we have now over 700 such initiatives mapped. So there is evidence that almost any EU country has a very rich body of experience. Now there is a discrepancy, like there's more in the Nordic countries. There's quite a developed field in the UK, but there's also a quite rapid pace of development of this field in southern countries like Italy, Spain. I would say nowadays in Romania too. So we are keeping up. I think it's important to also make a differentiation from arts practices that would have a benefit on health and well-being and art therapy. Art therapy is, we can call it is a branch of psychological therapy. It means that it needs to be done under all the rigors of therapy. Yes, so the people that are doing art therapy, they have been trained and they are therapists using art as means in their therapy. And most of the new practices that we are talking about, they are not reaching that level. They are mainly engaging artists that have a professional experience as artists, but who are in different ways engaging in their practice this dimension, either as a topic, like you have a performance that deals with eco-anxiety, and by having young people participating in writing the dramaturgy of this performance or attending to this performance, there is a certain level of understanding, reflection, and let's say release of anxiety, maybe seeing solutions, imagining solutions that could be as a way. And this is a 100% artistic practice that does have benefits. But then there are also other type of practices that have been more integrated into the medical field. There are more, let's say, wider scale solutions implemented, especially in the UK and countries like Sweden, Finland, and these are social prescribing schemes. That means that there are arts and community organizations that have a cultural offer of the kind that I was mentioning before as examples, like a program of 10 weeks for singing for people that maybe suffer from chronic pain. And then there is a medical referral, so their doctor or in the medical system there will be someone with the right knowledge that would say this person with these symptoms, they would benefit from arts engagement, and the best suits to their character and their medical history, participation would be in singing, dancing, or whatever, you know. And then there is let's say a social welfare scheme that would help the cultural organization deduct these costs, and it's like insurance paying for this type of activity. But it's not only the payment that is important in this social prescribing scheme, but also this bridging between the cultural experience and the medical experience. And maybe one last thing to mention is that I think arts can help greatly in shifting our current perspective on health to a new, absolutely necessarily new one. Nowadays, in Europe, only 2.8% of the budgets in health are being spent on prevention or health promotion. So it means that most of the entire medical system, private and public, is focused on fixing something. But I think it would be much more effective on the long term, and also in terms of macroeconomic parameters, if actually we were investing more in prevention of disease and developing healthy habits, so health promotion. And culture would be the perfect, let's say, tool to embed that. It's let's say not even tool, the milieu. It's more the environment. It has the right ingredients to allow for this type of integration of knowledge, of emotional acquiring of skills, of life skills, for shifting from just doing something about health when it's already a disease, and preventing it. So I think this is maybe the biggest thing that we could look at the macro level in how arts can support. It can really support moving towards a society and economy of well-being.
What needs to be done to make such a projects happen?
There are some supportive policies in northern countries. Now the EU, through these EU preparatory actions, and some new signs that we have learned from the latest months from the European Commission, with, for instance, the Voices of Culture initiative on youth and mental health and culture. We understand that there is an interest from policymakers. So, but what we still need to develop is a common language on how we can communicate about this, and how to understand what is to be done. Now, because this is such a diverse field, you cannot say this is the one thing to do if you're a decision maker. What we can say is, like, for instance, social prescribing is something that has been tested in some countries. It is a systemic structure that links the cultural organizations to the health and social providers, and then this could be policies to support. But I think from here, from our reality now, to that moment when we would have that type of policies in all EU countries, there is space for different shades of experiments. And that means that I think there should be enough support for cultural organizations to be in different partnerships and experiment at local level. So another recommendation that we also drafted in the Culture for Health report is related about supporting these partnerships between the different sectors and working with the people that have motivation and potential. But bringing like attributing money to these resources to that is really important. And then what is again also very important is being connected and learning from each other, learning from others' practices.
Let's end it in vision, and what do you think that it's a future of art in health, or how do you see this new landscape of artistic promotion, prevention in well-being and mental health?
Well, again, I think I would close the circle and come back from where we started, from the fact that as a society we are facing now some challenges, some challenges that are new to us, and how we are equipped internally to deal with them is probably the only efficient solution. That doesn't want to say that the systems are not responsible. I do believe that actually we need systemic solutions because the problems that we are facing are systemic. So I think the responsibility is systemic. But what I mean is that the way in which we perceive this reality will depend on our internal resilience. And culture has a very unique potential on helping us rediscover our internal worlds and reshape our internal worlds in a way that is more able to gracefully, let's say, gracefully and meaningfully interact with this environment in which we are acting. So, and I think here I would stress a very important thing that for me is at the core of what we call well-being, and that is the capacity of arts to create meaning. There's not so many things in our in today's society that helps people reconnect to a sense of purpose in their lives. We have a lot of jobs that really are meaningless, and people experience that meaninglessness when they get through burnout. And how do you recover that motivation? That can happen to the cathartic experience of being engaged in dancing or writing or singing, you know. So I think this is where I place my bet.